Sometimes the person everyone ignores is the one holding everything together. Emily Parker repeated those words silently as she hurried through the glass doors of Horizon Logistics on a chilly Monday morning. The clock above the reception desk read 8:12 a.m. She was already running behind. Her 10-year-old daughter, Lily, had missed the school bus, and the unexpected detour had cost precious minutes. Emily adjusted the strap of her worn handbag and made her way toward the operations department. Like every other day, she had arrived carrying more responsibility than most people could see. She was a single mother, a full-time employee, and the only person keeping her small household running. Yet none of those realities earned sympathy inside the office. The company had recently announced the arrival of a new chief executive officer. Employees throughout the building spent weeks speculating about who he was and what changes he might bring. Emily barely had time to think about it. Her priority was finishing reports, solving scheduling issues, and making sure shipments moved smoothly across multiple states. By 9 a.m., the weekly leadership meeting was underway. Although Emily was not technically part of management, she had been asked to attend because several operational reports relied heavily on her data. She entered the conference room quietly and took a seat near the end of the table. Across from her sat Karen Mitchell, the department director. Karen was known for demanding perfection while rarely accepting responsibility for mistakes. The meeting began routinely enough. Department heads reviewed numbers, discussed deadlines, and presented updates. Then the conversation shifted toward a delayed distribution project that had caused problems with an important client. Karen immediately straightened in her chair. "Unfortunately," she said, glancing directly at Emily, "the delay appears to have originated from incomplete coordination within operations." Emily blinked in surprise. She knew that statement was not accurate. Every instruction she had received had been completed on schedule. Before she could respond, Karen continued. Several opportunities to prevent the issue were missed. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Emily felt dozens of eyes turning toward her. Heat rushed to her face. "Actually," Emily said carefully, "the reports show that our team submitted everything before the deadline." Karen offered a thin smile. "Emily, this is not the time to make excuses." A few people looked away awkwardly. Others remained silent. Emily felt her stomach tighten. She wanted to defend herself, but years of experience had taught her that challenging Karen publicly rarely ended well. "The client expects accountability," Karen continued. "And accountability starts with the people responsible for execution." The implication was unmistakable. Emily sat frozen as embarrassment settled over her. Everything she had worked for during the past month seemed to be unraveling in front of the entire room. Yet what hurt most was not the criticism itself. It was the fact that no one spoke up. No one mentioned the emails proving Emily had completed every assignment correctly. No one acknowledged the countless overtime hours she had invested trying to keep the project on track. Then something unexpected happened. The conference room door opened. Every head turned simultaneously. A tall man in a navy suit stepped inside, accompanied by two executives. The room immediately fell silent. Karen stopped speaking mid-sentence. Emily recognized him from the company announcement photo. The new chief executive officer had arrived, and judging by the expression on his face, he had heard far more of the conversation than anyone realized. Nathan Reynolds stepped into the conference room with calm confidence. The conversation stopped immediately. Even Karen Mitchell seemed momentarily uncertain. The new chief executive officer had officially started that morning, but few employees had expected him to appear in a routine operations meeting. Nathan greeted the room politely before taking a seat near the center of the table. "Please continue," he said. His tone was professional and measured. Karen quickly recovered. "Of course." She offered a practice smile. "We were discussing the distribution project delay." Nathan nodded once. "I gathered that." Emily Parker kept her eyes on the documents in front of her. She wanted nothing more than for the meeting to end. The embarrassment from moments earlier still lingered. Yet she could not ignore the feeling that Nathan had entered at a very specific moment. Karen resumed her explanation. "The situation appears to stem from operational coordination issues." Nathan listened without interruption. He asked a few questions about deadlines, approvals, and communication procedures. Each answer seemed to generate another question. Within minutes, The discussion became noticeably more detailed than Karen appeared comfortable with. Emily remained silent. She had no desire to draw additional attention to herself. Eventually, Nathan glanced toward her. "Ms. Parker, correct?" Emily looked up. "Yes, sir. You were involved in this project?" "Yes." Nathan nodded. "Would you mind explaining your portion of the process?" Karen shifted slightly in her chair. Emily noticed the movement immediately. For a brief second, she considered giving the shortest answer possible. Then she remembered the countless evenings she had spent checking reports after Lily had gone to bed. She remembered the weekends sacrificed to meet deadlines. Quietly, she explained the sequence of events. She described when documents had been submitted, when approvals had been requested, and when follow-up communications had been sent. Nathan listened carefully. Unlike most executives Emily had encountered, he did not appear distracted. He seemed genuinely interested in understanding the facts. Once she finished, Nathan requested access to the project timeline displayed on the conference screen. The room watched as he reviewed several records. Silence filled the space. Then Nathan leaned back slightly. "Interesting." No one spoke. Nathan continued studying the information. Finally, he looked around the room. Based on these records, Ms. Parker completed her responsibilities before every listed deadline. Emily felt her heart skip. Karen immediately responded. "There may be additional factors not reflected." "Here." Nathan nodded calmly. "That is possible." Then he pointed towards several entries on the screen. However, these timestamps indicate the operational team delivered everything required. The delays appear to have occurred afterward. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Several managers exchanged glances. Emily could hardly believe what she was hearing. Nathan was not defending her personally. He was simply following the facts. Yet after weeks of being overlooked, that distinction felt incredibly important. Karen forced another smile. "We will certainly investigate further." Nathan closed the report. "Good." Then he addressed the entire room. "One thing I value is accuracy. Accountability matters. But accountability must be based on evidence, not assumptions." The statement was delivered politely, but its meaning was unmistakable. Emily noticed several employees looking at her differently. For the first time all morning, she no longer felt invisible. The meeting concluded shortly afterward. As people gathered their belongings, Emily quietly organized her notes. She planned to leave as quickly as possible. Before she could stand, a voice stopped her. "Ms. Parker." She turned. Nathan was looking directly at her. "Thank you for your explanation today." Emily nodded awkwardly. "Thank you, sir." Nathan smiled slightly. "Your preparation made the review much easier." Then he walked away. It was a simple interaction, lasting only seconds. Yet as Emily left the conference room, she found herself thinking about it for the rest of the day. Meanwhile, several floors above, Nathan sat alone in his new office reviewing company reports. One employee's name had already appeared repeatedly throughout the documents. And after what he had witnessed that morning, he intended to learn much more about Emily Parker. And after what he had witnessed that morning, he intended to learn much more about Emily Parker. The days following the meeting brought an unusual shift inside Horizon Logistics. Emily noticed it almost immediately. Coworkers who rarely acknowledged her now greeted her in the hallway. Managers who had previously overlooked her recommendations suddenly seemed interested in her opinions. Nothing dramatic had happened on the surface, yet the atmosphere felt different. The public review of the project had exposed facts many employees already suspected. Emily had not been responsible for the delay. More importantly, the new chief executive officer had made it clear that evidence mattered more than assumptions. Even Karen Mitchell appeared slightly more cautious during department meetings. Emily appreciated the change, but she remained focused on her work. She had learned long ago that office politics rarely stayed quiet for long. Every morning she arrived before most employees, organized operational schedules, reviewed shipping reports, and solved problems before they became emergencies. Then she returned home to help Lily with homework, prepare dinner, and manage the endless responsibilities that came with raising a child alone. Life continued moving at its usual pace. One Thursday afternoon, Emily received an unexpected email requesting her attendance at a leadership review session. She stared at the message in confusion. Operations coordinators were rarely invited to those meetings. Assuming it had been sent by mistake, she considered ignoring it. Then she noticed the sender, Nathan Reynolds. The meeting took place the following day. When Emily entered the conference room, She found only 3 people present. Nathan sat at the head of the table alongside 2 senior executives. Karen was noticeably absent. "Thank you for coming," Nathan said. Emily nodded nervously and took a seat. The meeting began with a discussion about company efficiency. Nathan asked questions about workflow systems, communication bottlenecks, and customer service challenges. To Emily's surprise, many of the issues being discussed were problems she dealt with daily. At first, she answered cautiously. However, as the conversation continued, she became more comfortable. Before long, she was explaining specific solutions she had developed to improve coordination between departments. One executive looked surprised. "We are not currently using that process." Emily shook her head. "No, I suggested it last year, but it was never implemented." Nathan made a note, without commenting. Later, another topic emerged regarding inventory tracking. Once again, Emily described a practical solution. Again, the executives appeared interested. By the end of the session, Nathan's notebook contained several pages of notes. As the meeting concluded, Emily gathered her documents and prepared to leave. "One moment," Nathan said. She stopped. "I have a question." Emily sat back down. Nathan folded his hands. "How many of these ideas have originated from you?" The question caught her off guard. "I am not sure." "Most of them." Emily hesitated. "Some." Nathan smiled slightly. "Your coworkers seem to benefit from a remarkable number of your suggestions." Emily looked down. "I just try to help where I can." Nathan studied her for a moment. "And who receives credit?" Emily laughed softly, though there was little humor in the sound. "Usually whoever presents the idea." For several seconds, Nathan said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. "I see." Emily left the room, unsure what to think. Meanwhile, Nathan remained seated after she departed. One of the executives broke the silence. "She understands the operation better than most managers." Nathan nodded. "I noticed." He opened a file containing internal reports collected over several years. As he reviewed them, a pattern became impossible to ignore. Time after time, successful improvements could be traced back to Emily Parker. Yet her name rarely appeared in official recognition records. Someone else always seemed to receive the credit. Nathan closed the file thoughtfully. The situation bothered him more than he expected. Because for the second time since arriving at Horizon Logistics, he had discovered that the person doing the most valuable work was also the person receiving the least recognition. And he was beginning to suspect that this problem extended far beyond a single meeting. Over the next several weeks, Nathan Reynolds continued reviewing nearly every aspect of Horizon Logistics. Most employees assumed the new chief executive officer was focused on budgets, expansion plans, and corporate strategy. In reality, Nathan spent just as much time studying people. He believed every company eventually reflected the quality of its leadership, and leadership could not be understood through spreadsheets alone. The more information he gathered, the more one pattern stood out. Emily Parker's name repeatedly appeared behind successful projects, process improvements, and customer retention initiatives. Yet whenever official recognition was documented, someone else's name seemed to appear at the top of the report. Nathan found the pattern impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Emily remained unaware of the growing attention surrounding her work. She continued handling daily challenges with her usual determination. Every morning started before sunrise. She prepared breakfast for Lily, drove her to school, then rushed to the office. Every evening brought homework, laundry, meal preparation, and planning for the next day. There was little room in her life for anything beyond responsibility. One afternoon, Horizon Logistics hosted a quarterly company-wide meeting. Employees from multiple departments gathered in the largest conference hall. The purpose was to review performance, discuss future goals, and introduce several new initiatives. Emily expected nothing unusual. She took a seat near the back of the room and quietly opened her notebook. As the presentation began, department leaders shared updates on company achievements. Several familiar projects were highlighted. Emily listened politely as managers described improvements she recognized immediately. More than once, she realized the ideas being praised had originated from conversations she had participated in months earlier. She felt the familiar sting of disappointment, but quickly pushed it aside. Recognition had never been her motivation. The work itself mattered more. Near the end of the presentation, Nathan stepped onto the stage. The room became noticeably quieter. Employees were still learning his leadership style, and many were curious about his plans for the company. Nathan thanked everyone for their efforts before discussing the future. Then he paused. "Before we conclude," he said, "there is something important I would like to address." Several employees exchanged curious glances. Nathan displayed a series of charts on the large screen behind him. They highlighted improvements in efficiency, customer satisfaction, and operational performance over the previous 2 years. "These results did not happen by accident," he said. "They happened because individuals throughout this company invested time, creativity, and effort into solving problems." The audience nodded politely. Then Nathan continued, "Unfortunately, I have also noticed that some contributions have not received the recognition they deserve." A wave of uncertainty moved through the room. Emily barely paid attention at first. She assumed the comments were directed toward leadership teams. Then Nathan displayed a list of internal projects. One by one, he identified the original sources behind several major improvements. As he spoke, Emily felt her pulse quicken. Every project being discussed was connected to her work. Finally, Nathan looked directly toward the audience. Many of these ideas came from one employee whose contributions have consistently strengthened this company. Emily felt dozens of heads turning in her direction before her name was even spoken. "Emily Parker." The room fell silent. Emily froze. Nathan smiled warmly. "Thank you for the work you have done, often without recognition." For a moment, she could not move. Years of being overlooked seemed to collide with a single unexpected moment. Around her, co-workers began applauding. Some appeared surprised. Others looked embarrassed. Karen Mitchell remained completely still. Nathan continued speaking, but Emily barely heard the words. The public humiliation she experienced weeks earlier had placed her at the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. Now, standing in the same company, surrounded by many of the same people, she was being recognized for the truth. And for the first time in years, Emily began to wonder whether someone finally saw her value exactly as it had always been. And for the first time in years, Emily began to wonder whether someone finally saw her value exactly as it had always been. The recognition at the company meeting quickly became the most discussed topic inside Horizon Logistics. Employees who had spent years overlooking Emily Parker suddenly viewed her through a different lens. Some congratulated her sincerely. Others seemed surprised that someone so quiet had influenced so many successful projects. Emily appreciated the kind words, but the attention made her uncomfortable. She had never worked for praise. She had simply done what needed to be done. The following Monday, life returned to its familiar rhythm. Emily dropped Lily off at school, arrived at the office early, and began organizing operational reports. She hoped the excitement from the company meeting would fade. Instead, the opposite happened. Shortly before lunch, she received another message from Nathan Reynolds requesting a private meeting. Emily felt nervous as she made her way to the executive floor. She still was not entirely comfortable around senior leadership, especially the chief executive officer. When she arrived, Nathan welcomed her into his office. The room was elegant without being excessive. Large windows overlooked the city skyline, and shelves filled with books lined one wall. Nathan invited her to sit. "Thank you for coming," he said. Emily smiled politely. "Of course." Nathan opened a folder on his desk. "I spent the weekend reviewing several years of project records." Emily immediately suspected where the conversation was heading. Nathan continued. "The deeper I looked, the clearer something became." He slid several documents across the desk. Emily glanced down and immediately recognized them. They were project proposals she had created over the years. "Many of the improvements that strengthened this company originated from your work," Nathan said. Emily shifted uncomfortably. "It was a team effort." Nathan smiled slightly. "That is exactly what everyone says when they are not receiving proper credit." Emily could not help laughing softly. Nathan's observation felt surprisingly accurate. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. Nathan leaned back in his chair. "Because I think you have spent a long time underestimating your own value." The statement caught her off guard. For years, Emily had focused so intensely on surviving that she rarely paused to evaluate her accomplishments. Every decision revolved around stability for Lily. Recognition had always felt secondary. Nathan continued reviewing several initiatives. One by one, he traced successful company improvements back to ideas Emily originally proposed. By the end of the discussion, even Emily was surprised by the pattern. Finally, she looked up. I never realized how many of these were connected. Nathan nodded. Most people do not keep score when they are busy doing the work. For a moment, silence filled the office. Then Emily asked a question that had been on her mind for weeks. Why does this matter so much to you? Nathan's expression changed slightly. The answer seemed to carry personal significance. He walked toward the window and looked out across the city. Because I have seen this before. Emily waited quietly. After several seconds, Nathan continued. My mother worked 2 jobs while raising me alone. Emily listened carefully. She was smart, hardworking, reliable. Yet people constantly overlooked her contributions. He smiled faintly. Others received promotions. Others received recognition. She kept showing up anyway. Emily immediately felt a connection to the story. Nathan turned back toward her. Watching that happen taught me something important. A company loses more than talent when good people are ignored. It loses integrity. The room fell silent again. For the first time, Emily saw something beyond the confident executive. She saw a son who had never forgotten the sacrifices his mother made. Suddenly, his interest in fairness made perfect sense. As the meeting ended, Nathan handed her a new folder. There is one more thing I would like you to review. Emily opened it and stared in disbelief. Inside was an opportunity that could change her entire career at Horizon Logistics. And as she looked at the documents, she realized that the biggest surprise of her journey might still be waiting ahead. And as she looked at the documents, she realized that the biggest surprise of her journey might still be waiting ahead. Emily Parker stared at the folder for several seconds before finally looking up. I do not understand, she admitted. Nathan Reynolds smiled. Take it home and read everything carefully. Emily opened the first page again. The proposal outlined a newly created position within Horizon Logistics. The role would oversee operational efficiency across multiple departments and report directly to senior leadership. The responsibilities matched many of the tasks she had already been performing unofficially for years. What shocked her most was seeing her own ideas woven throughout the framework. This was designed around the systems you developed, Nathan explained. Emily was speechless. For so long she had been accustomed to seeing her work disappear into the background that she hardly knew how to react when someone openly acknowledged it. That evening, after picking Lily up from school, Emily sat at the kitchen table reviewing every page. Lily noticed the unusual expression on her mother's face immediately. Something happened at work, she said confidently. Emily laughed. How do you always know? Lily grinned. Because you have been staring at the same paper for 10 minutes. Emily explained the opportunity as simply as possible. Lily listened carefully. When she finished, her daughter smiled. You should do it. Emily shook her head. It is not that simple. Why not? Emily hesitated. The honest answer was fear. The new role carried more responsibility, greater visibility, and the possibility of failure. For years, she had survived by staying dependable and avoiding attention. Stepping into leadership would require an entirely different level of confidence. Yet as she looked at Lily, she remembered the lesson she always tried to teach her daughter. Do not let fear make decisions for you. The following morning, Emily accepted the opportunity. Over the next several weeks, she worked closely with leadership teams to implement operational improvements across the company. The transition was demanding, but something unexpected happened. The more responsibility she received, the more her confidence grew. For the first time in years, she felt genuinely seen. Nathan remained involved throughout the process. Their meetings became more frequent, though always professional. What surprised Emily was how naturally their conversations expanded beyond work. Sometimes they discussed leadership challenges. Other times they talked about books, community projects, or childhood memories. Nathan possessed an ability to listen that Emily rarely encountered. He asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in her perspective. One afternoon, after a particularly productive meeting, Nathan noticed a photograph sitting inside Emily's notebook. It showed her and Lily at a school event. Your daughter? He asked. Emily smiled immediately. Yes, Lily is 10. Nathan studied the picture briefly. She looks happy. She keeps me going. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. My mother used to say something similar about me. The comment sparked another conversation about family. For the first time, Nathan shared additional details about his childhood. Emily learned how difficult some years had been and how hard his mother worked to provide stability. The similarities between their experiences surprised both of them. Despite their different positions today, they understood many of the same struggles. As weeks turned into months, a friendship slowly formed. Neither acknowledged it directly, but the trust between them became increasingly obvious. Employees throughout Horizon Logistics noticed the mutual respect as well. What they did not see were the private moments of encouragement, the conversations that continued after meetings ended, the shared understanding that came from overcoming challenges. One evening, after finishing a long day at the office, Emily received a text message from Nathan. It was simple. He wished her luck before an important presentation scheduled for the next morning. Emily smiled as she read it. The message was brief, professional, and thoughtful, yet somehow it meant more than she expected. What neither of them fully realized was that the relationship growing between them had already begun moving beyond friendship. And soon, one very observant 10-year-old girl would become the first person brave enough to point it out. And soon, one very observant 10-year-old girl would become the first person brave enough to point it out. The following Saturday began like most weekends in the Parker household. Emily prepared pancakes while Lily sat at the kitchen table working on a school project. Sunlight streamed through the apartment windows, creating a peaceful atmosphere that felt far removed from the pressure of corporate meetings and operational reports. For the first time in years, Emily felt optimistic about the future. Her new role at Horizon Logistics was going well. She enjoyed the challenges, and more importantly, she felt respected. Lily looked up from her project and studied her mother carefully. "Can I ask you something?" Emily smiled. "You usually do." Lily grinned. "Do you like Mr. Reynolds?" Emily nearly dropped the spatula she was holding. "What?" Lily tried unsuccessfully to hide her amusement. "You smile every time you see a message from him." Emily shook her head. "He is my boss." "That was not my question." Emily laughed despite herself. "You are too smart." Lily returned her attention to the project, but her smile remained. The conversation lingered in Emily's thoughts long after breakfast ended. She told herself that Lily was reading too much into things. Nathan Reynolds was a respected leader and a trusted friend. Nothing more. Yet the certainty she once felt no longer seemed quite as strong. Later that afternoon, Horizon Logistics sponsored a community volunteer event at a local youth center. Employees and their families were invited to participate. Emily decided to attend and brought Lily along. When they arrived, the building buzzed with activity. Volunteers organized supplies, painted classrooms, and assembled educational materials for children. Nathan greeted employees personally as they arrived. When he spotted Emily and Lily, his face immediately brightened. "I am glad you came," he said. Lily smiled. "Me too." Throughout the afternoon, Nathan spent time helping various teams while also checking on Emily and Lily whenever their paths crossed. The interactions felt natural and effortless. At one point, Nathan helped Lily carry several boxes of books into a classroom. The task was simple, but the conversation that followed left an impression on both of them. "My mom says helping people matters," Lily told him. Nathan smiled. "Your mother is right. You help people too." Nathan looked thoughtful. "I try." Lily nodded seriously. "That is probably why she likes you." Nathan paused. For a brief moment, he seemed genuinely surprised. Then he laughed softly. "Did she tell you that?" "No," Lily replied. "I figured it out myself." Nathan glanced across the room toward Emily, who was organizing supplies with other volunteers. Something warm settled into his expression. The rest of the day passed quickly. As the event concluded, employees gathered for refreshments and conversation. Emily noticed how easily Nathan connected with people from every level of the company. He treated senior executives and entry-level employees with the same respect. The quality impressed her more than any business accomplishment ever could. Later, as she and Lily prepared to leave, Nathan walked them to their car. "Thank you both for coming," he said. "We had fun," Lily replied immediately. Emily smiled. "Thank you for organizing everything." For a moment, neither adult seemed eager to end the conversation. Eventually, Lily climbed into the back seat, leaving Emily and Nathan standing beside the car. The silence felt comfortable rather than awkward. "You have done remarkable work these past few months," Nathan said quietly. Emily looked down. "I had a good teacher." Nathan smiled. "I think you are giving me too much credit." Their eyes met briefly before both looked away. The moment lasted only seconds, yet it felt significant. As Emily drove home later that evening, Lily observed her from the back seat. "You know," she said casually, "I think Mr. Reynolds likes you too." Emily laughed and shook her head. But deep down, a question had already begun forming. And for the first time, she was no longer sure she wanted to ignore the answer. During the days that followed, Emily Parker found it increasingly difficult to separate her professional admiration for Nathan Reynolds from the growing personal feelings she carried quietly inside. Nothing inappropriate had happened. Their interactions remained respectful, thoughtful, and professional. Yet the connection between them had become impossible to deny. The problem was not how she felt. The problem was everything else. Emily had spent years building a life based on practical decisions. Every dollar mattered. Every schedule adjustment mattered. Every choice had to support stability for Lily. Nathan lived in a completely different world. He led a successful company, attended executive events, and carried responsibilities that affected hundreds of employees. Whenever Emily allowed herself to imagine a future beyond friendship, doubt quickly followed. One evening, after Lily had finished her homework, Emily sat alone at the kitchen table reviewing company documents. Her attention drifted repeatedly toward her phone. Earlier that day, Nathan had invited her to attend a regional leadership conference as part of her new role. It was an important opportunity and one she had already accepted, yet she could not stop thinking about the event. The conference would place them together for 2 full days outside the normal office environment. The thought made her nervous for reasons she preferred not to examine too closely. Across the table, Lily studied her mother carefully. "You are thinking again." Emily smiled. "I do that sometimes." "About work?" Lily asked. Emily hesitated. "Partly." Lily nodded knowingly. "And partly about Mr. Reynolds." Emily laughed despite herself. "You really do not miss much." The conference took place the following week at a hotel approximately 60 miles from the city. Leaders from multiple offices attended workshops, planning sessions, and strategy meetings. Emily focused on her responsibilities and quickly earned praise for several presentations. Her confidence had grown tremendously over recent months. More than once, Nathan watched proudly as she shared ideas with senior leadership teams. The transformation from the hesitant employee he first met to the confident professional standing before executives was remarkable. On the second evening, attendees gathered for an informal networking dinner. Conversations flowed easily as colleagues discussed projects and future goals. At one point, Emily stepped outside onto a quiet terrace overlooking the city lights. The cool evening air provided a welcome break from the crowded room. A few minutes later, Nathan joined her. Neither seemed surprised. They stood side by side in comfortable silence. Finally, Nathan spoke. "You were outstanding today." Emily smiled softly. "Thank you. You earned every bit of that success." The sincerity in his voice touched her more than she expected. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Emily finally voiced the concern she had been carrying for weeks. "Sometimes I wonder if people will ever see me the way you do." Nathan turned toward her. "What do you mean?" Emily looked out toward the lights below. "Most of my life has been about surviving. Single mother, tight budgets, long hours. I am proud of what I have built, but sometimes it feels like there will always be a gap between my world and yours." Nathan listened carefully. When she finished, he shook his head gently. "Emily, the things you just described are not weaknesses." She looked at him. "They are not. They are evidence of strength." His answer came without hesitation. "The reason I respect you has nothing to do with titles or positions. It is because of the person you chose to become despite every challenge." Emily felt emotion rise unexpectedly. For so many years, she had measured herself against what she lacked. Nathan seemed focused entirely on what she had achieved. As they returned inside, Emily realized something important. The greatest obstacle standing between them was not social status, income, or professional hierarchy. It was the belief she still carried that she somehow deserved less. And overcoming that belief might become the most important challenge of her entire journey. The weeks following the leadership conference brought remarkable changes to Emily Parker's life. The operational improvements she had helped implement continued producing impressive results across Horizon Logistics. Teams communicated more effectively. Customer satisfaction increased. Efficiency improved throughout multiple departments. For the first time in her career, Emily was not simply contributing behind the scenes. She was helping shape the future of the company openly and confidently. Yet the greatest change was happening inside her. Slowly, she began believing something she had struggled to accept for years. Her value was not determined by her title, her income, or the obstacles she had faced. Her value had always existed. She simply needed the courage to recognize it. One Friday morning, an invitation appeared in every employee's inbox. Horizon Logistics would host a company-wide gathering to celebrate recent achievements and announce several important leadership developments. Hundreds of employees attended. As Emily entered the conference hall, she immediately recognized the room. It was the same space where Nathan Reynolds had publicly acknowledged her contributions months earlier. The memory brought an unexpected smile. What had once been a place associated with anxiety now felt completely different. When the event began, Nathan addressed the audience from the stage. He reviewed company accomplishments and thanked employees for their dedication. Then he paused. "Today," he said, "I want to recognize someone whose leadership has transformed this organization." Emily felt a familiar nervousness return. Around her, several co-workers smiled knowingly. Nathan continued, "Leadership is not about authority. It is about service, integrity, and the willingness to help others succeed." He looked directly toward her section of the room. "Those qualities are demonstrated every day by Emily Parker." Applause immediately filled the hall. Emily felt emotion rise as she walked toward the stage. This time, however, she was not embarrassed. She was proud. Nathan announced her promotion to Director of Operational Excellence, a role created specifically to expand the systems and strategies she had developed. The audience responded with another round of applause. Many employees stood. Emily could hardly believe what she was experiencing. Months earlier, she had sat silently in this same room wondering whether anyone truly saw her efforts. Now her work was being celebrated openly. After the event concluded, employees gathered to congratulate her. Karen Mitchell approached as well. Her expression was sincere. "Congratulations, Emily," she said. "You earned this." Emily thanked her warmly. The past no longer held the same power it once did. Later that evening, after most guests had left, Emily remained behind speaking with Nathan. The conference hall had grown quiet. Sunlight filtered through the windows exactly as it had on the day everything changed. Nathan smiled. "Do you remember your first meeting here?" Emily laughed softly. "I remember wishing the floor would open and swallow me." Nathan shook his head. "I remember seeing someone who deserved better." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Nathan continued, "Emily, there is something I have wanted to say for a long time." Her heart quickened. "What is it?" Nathan's smile was warm and genuine. "I admire you. Not because of your success. Not because of your work. Because of your character." Emily felt tears gathering in her eyes. "Thank you." Nathan took a slow breath. "And if you are comfortable with it, I would like the opportunity to spend time together outside of work." Emily laughed softly through her emotions. "I was beginning to wonder if you would ever ask." Both smiled. In that moment, there were no titles, no office walls, and no differences in status. There were simply two people who respected each other deeply. That evening, Emily returned home,